This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 314. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Hey, I am fired up to have everybody listen to the podcast this week because I really think it's turned a corner, because most people wouldn't know this is behind the scenes, but Brandon and I had a magical meeting where all we talked about was what we're supposed to do, and it fixed everything.
Oh, I'm so glad that this is what we're starting with, because look, we have not talked since the game other than to set up what time we're going to record. And I took the same exact thing away from the press conferences this week, that they're making such a big deal over the fact, and if you haven't heard, it was the defense that had a meeting that apparently it was just, they asked every player what their job was. And this was apparently revelatory, according to questions that were asked around it. And yes, I'm baffled by this, Adam. Help me out.
Yeah, well, I got nothings for you, because it made zero sense to me when I heard Pete talk about it. He said, "Oh, this is the best players meeting I've ever seen in my life. It was magical." Basically, they all got sprinkled with fairy dust after it, or I don't know. They sung Kumbaya when they were done. I have no idea what it was, but somehow by just stating simply what your job is, that somehow fixes all the problems with the job you haven't been doing correctly. I
see,
just
when I heard this though, Adam, when I heard this, I thought to myself, so you played 9 games without conferring with the players on whether or not they knew their actual jobs. And so after 9 games, this is now you check, and then they go out and they play well.
Well, they clearly knew their
relatively
jobs.
Well. They play acceptably well.
Yeah, so they clearly knew their jobs. So Pete's just surprised that they actually knew them. And that was really great for him. Or was it surprising from I don't know, Bobby Wagner to hear Jared Reed be like, "Yeah, so I play defensive line and I eat up blocks." And Bobby was like, "Solved. Defense solved. Got it now. We're all good." I don't understand. It was the next company that has a major internal problem. Are they just going to get everybody together and just have them cite their job titles and descriptions, and then the entire company will be back in the black? Is that how it works now? Is this a new strategy we use in our lives?
There has to be something else that we're missing. Ken Norton must be able to deliver a pretty good sized butt chewing. And that would explain it more than people just stating what they knew their jobs were that they had to do.
Well, here's the thing, and this is why I don't buy this stupid bullshit meeting situation, the magic meeting in the sky, because they started playing better in the second half against the Rams the week before in the second half of that game. It's not like it just magically started in the Cardinals game.
Pete Carroll keeps pointing back toward the second half of the Rams game. And I covered this last week. I didn't think that it was all that great. Well, guess what? Against the Cardinals, it wasn't all that great either. It was just like you put it. It was acceptable. That's it. Yeah.
They started playing acceptable the week before, have a meeting in between where basically they just hang out and everybody says, "Oh yeah, you're on the team too. We all have jobs. Cool." And now they hold the Cardinals to 300 odd some yards of offense, and everything's better now.
The Seahawks move to 7-3 on the year. They get the 28-21 win over the Arizona Cardinals. And they did some things on offense here that they stopped doing from the previous 3 games. No turnovers. Russell Wilson threw the ball efficiently. They ran the football well. It was overall, I think, a much better performance on offense. And not giving up turnovers, it turns out, is what has led the Seahawks to all of their wins this season.
Do you want me to give you an idea of what I think actually happened in that meeting? Because I don't think it was just the defense that was there. I think it was the entire team. And I think this is really how it went down. Pete looked at Skybox Shoddy and was like, "Look, we're doing it my way again now. Okay, you're going to run the ball a little bit more. And we're going to stop, taking kill shots on every single play. And we're going to start playing more like I like to play." Then he looked at Ken Norton. He's like, "All right, enough with the soft zone bullshit. You're going to play your corners up on guys, and you're going to make sure that they do it. And we're going to play defense my way." And Pete just went in there and he slapped the coordinators on the head and said, "Okay, fun time was over through this first few weeks of the season. Now we're going to play Pete ball. I think that's how that meeting went, more so than, oh, I play quarterback and I throw the ball.
I just hope that was Russell Wilson's answer.
Well, the other way it could have gone is like, my name's Russell Wilson and I throw a sexy deep ball and then just drop the mic.
Play fake. Russ is going to roll to the right side, stops, looks, steps up in the pocket. Now he's going to scramble. Now he's going to throw to the end zone. He's got a man. Touchdown, Seahawks. DK Metcalf. Play made by Russell Wilson, scrambling out of the pocket to his right side, and Metcalf comes all the way across the back of the end zone, outrunning Patrick Peterson, and the ball was absolutely perfect. The Seahawks on their opening drive go up 6-0.
Nice to see the Seahawks start off on the board with a touchdown. DK Metcalf gets involved early. The impressive thing to me about the Seahawks' first drive, Adam, was they had 3 third down conversions. It was 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, all conversions. Mm-hmm. One of them even converted on a run play by Carlos Hyde.
On that first drive, when they were in 3rd and short, they actually did reasonable things when they were in 3rd and short. And then later in the game, we got a lot of those bombs on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4, things like that. And which, again, sometimes they work out. But, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, the 3rd and 6, it was just a dump off to Hyde that he ends up picking up 9 on. Lockett runs, a route to the sticks on the 3rd and 4. So that was nice to see. It wasn't holding on to the ball forever like, you mentioned later on in the game.
Yeah.
Or even on their very second drive after the defense holds the Cardinals to a 3 and out on their first possession. The frustrating play for me was when they're back in 3rd and 2 on their second drive of the game. And they bring in everybody for max protect on Russell because it looks like Arizona's sending the blitz. And then they just send everybody deep on 3rd and 2. There's like no quick guy to throw the ball to on 3rd and 2.
We do that a lot. And that's an adjustment that I hope that they make later in the season here as we go down the stretch and give at least one option of a guy in the flat or something like that. Like every other team does, like especially against us where they run everybody off and then leak somebody underneath. Like I'd love to see that. Maybe that's a delayed route by the tight end after he chips or, whatever it is.
Well, we did see that kind of route later on in the game. Hollister had a pickup on, maybe it wasn't 3rd and short, maybe it was 2nd and short, but he did do that.
Yeah, it happens now and then. I'm just saying that there is a tendency. You should take a kill shot on 3rd and short, maybe like once a game.
Yeah.
Not 4 times a game, and that's just a minor annoyance. But what you did see in this game, which I thought was awesome, is number one, they sprinkled the run in a little bit more. No, it wasn't the same old Seahawks offense from back in the day. It wasn't exactly Pete ball. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But they ran it effectively. They made them respect it. And it actually changed the whole way that Arizona was playing defense against them. That was great. The second thing you saw was Russell Wilson finally played a Russell Wilson game. He played like Russell Wilson. Instead of trying to be Tom Brady setting the touchdown record in a season when he had Randy Moss and all that stuff, he decided to just be Russell Wilson. And guess what? That's damn good. And he ran the ball a little bit more. He, instead of making that risky throw to pick up the first down through a throw, he could sit there and say, hey, I could easily get this with my legs, and then goes out and gets it. It was vintage Russell, and it kept the turnovers from occurring, and it made a huge difference in the game. And I think that was the biggest difference in the offense. Just running it a little bit more, and Russell deciding to play like himself, not trying to do too much.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it was running the ball all that much more. You saw Carlos Hyde with 14 carries. Scarborough had 6 carries. I think the percentages worked out relatively the same. I don't know if you include Russell Wilson as, especially the scrambles versus the actual run plays, depending on how you want to break that out. It was the fact that, one, they ran the ball effectively because they had a running back like Carlos Hyde, who, yes, he's the backup to Chris Carson, but gosh, you see Hyde look a whole lot better than any of the other options that we've seen from Seattle this year.
Hyde is a starter level back in this league. I mean, he was last year the Texans' best running back by far. So it's not like he's a scrub. I did enjoy watching Scarborough come in for a minute, and that'll be the last I enjoy that for a very long time, it sounds like, which is a real bummer.
Yeah.
But when they run him north and south, man, like I remember watching, you know how much college I watch, but I watched a tiny bit of Alabama football, and it was a game that Scarborough just lit them up. And if you get him north and south, he is a freight train. It's impossible to bring him down. Yet somehow when they first brought in Scarborough, they kept running him on sweeps, which was really annoying. Yeah. But Hyde looked good. Scarborough looked good. It was nice not to see the Travis Homer, 3rd and 6 run. That's great. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. Yeah, it's just a balanced game and a nice attack. And it kept us comfortably ahead in the game pretty much all game long. I mean, this was the most comfortable I felt throughout a game in weeks and weeks.
Yeah, it was for a good portion of it because it felt like the Seahawks were in control of this game pretty much all the way through, even though there were moments where it looked awfully close. I mean, I want to go back to the first half because I think there was a point there where it turned and made this game maybe even closer than it should have been because, one, the Seahawks defense had shut out the Cardinals for the first quarter. And that was nice to see because I think that was the first time that we've seen the Seahawks actually shut out a team in the first quarter. But the Cardinals, they got back into it. And a big part of it was, remember the throw down to DK Metcalf on the right sideline on Patrick Peterson, a nice deep throw. It gets called back for Damian Lewis being called for a hold where he was essentially just run over. And I highlight this because maybe it was Lewis's one bad play for a dude just starting at center for the very first time in his career. But after that call for hold, the Seahawks end up having to punt it away. Ryan Neal gets flagged for unsportsmanlike because he didn't get back in bounds quick enough. And the Cardinals get great field position, and they're able to tie it up 7-7.
That call on Lewis, my goodness. What's the guy supposed to do? He got flagged for being a speed bump.
He did. He didn't even grab the jersey at all. He just got completely run over.
Got dump trucked, and then they're like, "That's on you." Like maybe it was just out of shame. Was it a shame flag?
Oh, maybe.
Was that it?
Yeah.
I don't know, but they just called it incorrectly. Instead of calling it a 10-yard penalty for shaming, it was a 10-yard penalty for holding. But that was a bummer because that was a huge difference in that early portion of the game. What that penalty amount to at that point? Like a 57-yard penalty, right? Because it was like a 47-yard bomb to DK and then a 10-yard holding penalty. And then they, just like you said, punt it away. And Ryan Neal gets flagged correctly, by the way, for not getting back into bounds. Like, you just need to make an effort. I don't know.
In terms of field position for that, what that holding call represented, even if the drive fizzles out after throwing to DK down the sideline, they're at midfield, then you're punting the Cardinals back deep. And the way the defense was playing, that maybe they're able to hold them rather than driving the entire length of the field. And so I think that play was significant for those reasons.
Oh, yeah, it was hugely significant early on. But the defense was playing well early. And you saw that the Seahawks actually did what we've talked about, the entire time we've been playing the Cardinals under Cliff Kingsbury. Get up on the receivers, play all the 5-yard outs, the little, quick crossers, all that stuff. And when it comes to the read option, look, Kyler Murray's going to keep it at least half the time, if not more. So play Kyler. And that's what the Seahawks did. And they totally shut down that rinky-dink BS, air raid, whatever that is, offense, where everything is predicated on those tiny little throws. And they really did just smother Kyler Murray in the offense early on. It was so vindicating to finally see the defense play that way and play towards the tendencies of that offense.
Yeah, and you saw it several times throughout the game where the throws weren't there downfield because they weren't playing the soft zone. You mentioned it earlier, how the corners were playing up on the receivers. That was nice to see. And so then Kyler would step up in the pocket and there would be LJ Collier. There would be Carlos Hyde there to take him down before he had any chance to get out and run wild. He only had 15 yards rushing in this game, which was huge. You saw Jamal Adams a couple times. He was the spy, and you saw him on one big play in this game that I thought really turned it in the fourth quarter. The Cardinals get back in it, I think, in the third quarter. Remember where they send everybody and Edmonds is just wide open in the end zone and they get within 2 points. It's 23-21. The Seahawks next drive fizzles out. So the Cardinals are getting the ball back just down 2 points. And you see on 1st and 10, Kyler Murray drops back. Jamal Adams comes around the edge, and he gets right in that throwing lane of Murray. He's jumping up and down, and Murray he freaks out and throws it into the turf. It ends up being intentional grounding. They're back on the 2-yard line. And then on the next play, L.J. Collier makes a great inside move, gets the hold from J.R. Sweezy, and the Seahawks get the safety.
Yeah, I don't know if we should be more excited that LJ made a play or that JR came through for us finally. It was a bit
Sleeper
ironic.
agent J.R. Sweezy helping us out in our time of need.
Well, I think the problem is that it's a lot like the Manchurian Candidate situation. Like it's mentally programmed within him. So it's not like he was trying to do it. It's not like he knew consciously that was it. But I'm pretty sure like somebody must have said something like LJ Collier at the line of scrimmage, knew the password.
Oh yeah, Bobby Wagner has the password. So I'm sure he went up and whispered it to LJ before
and he's
the play.
Like pineapple pizza. And that just is, the switch flipped and that was that. He had to hold. But that safety was huge. And it was awesome to see LJ Collier actually have a very solid game all the way around. This is a guy that was drafted in the first round and people have been calling him a bust. And he hasn't even really had a chance to show if he is or isn't really. I mean, He's just starting to get the playing time here in the second half of this season. And it's nice to see him come through. And it helps him a lot to have Dunlap next to him. I mean, that's been a revelation. That guy has way more left in the tank than I would have ever guessed. 3 sacks in 3 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was maybe even expecting that level of performance from Carlos Dunlap. And yeah, it was something that was needed. So you got Dunlap out there now. You got Snacks Harrison out there now. It looks like...
Which is another big difference maker.
Yeah.
The Snacks has been huge for us. And I love the idea that Schneider on a song got these 2 guys in the door, right? I mean, Snacks was just sitting out there. And then you got Dunlap that they get for a backup center and a 7th round pick.
Yeah, a center that was maybe our biggest offseason free agency signing mistake and able to turn that around into Carlos Dunlap.
Well, we knew that was the biggest mistake of the offseason because of his sweaty ass. Like we knew that was the biggest problem.
Yeah. It's,
you don't trade for sweaty ass guys.
No, and we were thinking of Russell Wilson at the time. So, yeah.
And just my own viewing pleasure, like throughout the game. Like
when you look at an offensive lineman's ass, you want it to be not sweaty. And, that's because that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, ideally. Yeah, it just grosses you out knowing that another man has to put his hands there. And we did see Russ actually have his hands under center a lot more in this game because of Damian Lewis, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
He was under center a lot more than he had been early in the year, which again, I think helped the offense overall, break some tendencies and really kind of trip up the Cardinals that way. And give Lewis all the credit in the world. Number one, hey, guess what? He's a rookie. Remember, he's a rookie.
And he's never played center before in the NFL.
I don't think he's played center before ever. That was my sense of it when I heard people talk about it. And
everybody, when they were asked, they couldn't recall unless, it was like one random time in high school. But yeah.
Yeah. And then he doesn't get any actual physical reps in terms of full speed in practice because it's
a short week.
Yeah. So he never gets to feel what it's like to snap the ball and then have a giant 300-pound man who's trying to kill you run you over. And to be able to survive that and actually perform pretty well, sure, he made some mistakes. But good Lord, give the man all the credit in the world. I mean, I might start the Damian Lewis fan club. I think I might be the founding charter member.
You might have to. You can get yourself a lime action green Damian Lewis jersey.
I could get a lime action green one. But since I have taste in more places than just my mouth, I will get a different color.
Yeah. Well, going back into the third quarter, there was another moment of the game that I think Arizona Cardinals fans are going to be saying that this game kind of swung upon. I'll even go back to right after halftime because the first drive for the Cardinals, there was a 3rd and 11 where Murray throws behind Hopkins. Diggs comes up, hits him right in the shoulder pad. Hopkins is on the ground crying for about 3 minutes before the flag finally comes in for a personal foul call on Diggs.
And then he hopped right back up and he's all good to go, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did the soccer style on the ground. Oh, my head. Even though he hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
And I'll get to Hopkins a little bit more later in the show. But then you had a horse collar by B. Wags on that. And so the Cardinals able to drive 81 yards, even though 30 of the yards were from the Seahawks.
In critical moments.
In critical moments, yeah.
That was the tough part about it. And you're right on the Diggs hit. One thing that I think, you had called for in the last show is you just want him to be aggressive and hit people like they did earlier in the year.
I'll take that penalty because we saw him just lay out Dan Arnold earlier on in the game. Was it earlier on? It was a hit on Arnold.
It was earlier on in the game. Yeah.
It was, yes. That was because that was the second one where I was like, oh, well, he already had the one big breakup. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd rather see the guys, play aggressive and not overly aggressive, right? Because that wasn't a play where Diggs hit him like way late or anything like that. The only reason why it was a penalty is because Murray sucks and couldn't get it to D-Hop. And if he would have hit him, with the pass, then that would have been a perfectly legal play.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that
if D-Hop gets a finger on the football, then yes. But he just threw so far behind him.
Right. And so, I don't blame Diggs in that moment, not realizing how much Kyler Murray sucks and didn't take that into full account. And that was the big problem there. But so you can't blame him there. But in Wags, his penalty,
yeah.
I mean, that was a horse collar.
Yeah.
It could have been an awesome play. It was totally accidental. And sometimes catfish just happens.
Yeah.
I
don't even think he needed to do it because I think KJ was not too far behind him there to clean it up. But
yeah.
I am not going to dump on our Hall of Fame linebacker. I'm just pointing out that they got 30 free yards on that 81-yard drive.
Look, our penalties were their best play most of the game.
So the Cardinals get within 2 points there after their first possession in the second half. And then there's a critical drive for the Seahawks because they move the ball well down almost to the red zone. And on 3rd and 7, that dump off pass to Tyler Lockett, where, he is fighting to stay on his feet. And you're almost saying to yourself, just go down, Tyler, because there's dudes flying all over the field at him. He went into this game. You're worried about his knee injury. Pete Carroll was real high on the fact that he wanted to play, but he's trying to stay upright. And then there's this huge scrum between DK Metcalf is in it and Drake Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick gets called for a taunting penalty. And that was huge because the Cardinals essentially, they had held the Seahawks to be in field goal range. And then they get a first down and they're inside the red zone. I just thought that was a critical moment, but also pointing out that, especially if you're an Arizona fan and saying, oh, that was garbage because they didn't call DK too. And I think it makes up for that one, huge field position shift in the first half.
Yeah, with the falling / holding call.
Where Lewis, phantom holding call on Lewis.
Right. Look, as far as the scrum goes, right? I mean, it would have been 4th down. They would have gone for it. It's not like it was for sure a stop.
Oh, that was go for it range, wasn't it?
There was go for it range. And you would go for it there. So, Cardinals fans want to cry, which they usually do. And I get it. I mean, if my team was that terrible too, I'd cry all the time as well. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Well, Kirkpatrick's reaction after he realized like he didn't want all that smoke. Like because, and I love that DK was like, you are not doing that to my man, Tyler. You are not going to do him dirty like that. You're not going to, it's not like it was a dirty play. It just looked real bad.
Yeah.
And so DK was not going to let that happen to his boy, Tyler. And I love that he came to his defense, came running in there. And I love how Kirkpatrick like pretends that he's into this at first. And then you can tell like, he's doing the whole, how Jalen Rose would make fun of NBA players when they fight. Hold me back, hoping
where you get the biggest dude on the team to wrap you up.
Right. So you can still like, run your mouth and all that and like pretend like you're still trying to get to him. But what I love is that throughout the course of the season now, DK Metcalf has made 2 Arizona defensive backs officially poop their pants.
I also liked on that within the scrum, I almost thought DK was going to throw a punch, and Brandon Shell came up behind him and did the thing where you lock both their arms up with yours.
Yeah.
And to keep him
Is
from
that called
throwing
a
any
do-si-do?
punches.
Is that a like a square dance move or something?
Thought maybe that was a fight term that I just wasn't aware of.
Oh, no. Maybe it was an MMA move. Who knows?
But then Carlos Hyde runs the ball, runs over Patrick Peterson, almost getting into the end zone. He does get in the end zone on the next play, but the Seahawks go up 23-14, and it felt comfortable. But then, the Cardinals come back.
Sure. And look, I know it was close going down the stretch, but even on that final drive with the Hawks up 7, there was a lot of people that felt fairly nervous at that point, but I really didn't at all because, number one, it's really great being up 7 instead of like 4, like we normally are. Where it's
because the worst thing, they probably wouldn't go for a 2-point conversion at the end of the game, but you're thinking, okay, well, if they do score, at least it's going into overtime.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario. And, the defense had done its job. As long as they didn't give up, some stupid penalty, they were probably going to stop them. And of course, they, at that point, do what they always do in that situation. They start playing that soft zone and letting them just, dink and dunk their way down the field, which I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. When and how is that ever going to stop in a critical moment for the Seahawks? When is that philosophy going to change? It has to. Yeah. It is the most maddening thing in the world.
Well, it's like last year when they started playing more base defense. They were playing it because it worked the best. And they have to know 10 games in now that playing soft zone does not work the best.
Dude, it hasn't worked the best since 2012, right? Like, I remember getting knocked out of the playoffs with a chance to go to the NFC Championship game because they played catfish soft zone against the Atlanta Falcons, right? This isn't a new problem when it comes to late in games trying to cling to a lead. Like, this is something they do. It's a Pete Carroll thing, and it's maddening. But our new man, Carlos Dunlap, comes in and saves the day.
3 receivers, Fitzgerald that is, and Kirk go to the far side. Empty backfield. Murray takes the snap, looks, gets hit, goes down. Seahawks sack. Murray getting there was Dunlap. Came off the edge, almost untouched. Huge play by the Seahawks defense, and the Hawks are going to win this game at Lumen Field. And it's going to come on a great defensive play with 34 seconds left.
Great move by him, getting around the corner quickly, and Murray didn't even have time to throw it to it because they had the opportunity there. It was 4th and 10. They get a first down there, and I think they even still had a timeout. They could have got the first down and still had more plays of throwing at the end zone. That was not like a walk off the field Hail Mary type play that they had to get it in the end zone. So it was a great play by Dunlap to get it there. There was a great play before that with Diggs nearly intercepting the ball to Fitzgerald in a throw to the end zone. There was a pass breakup that was to the corner of the end zone before that too. So yeah, that series there, it was a nice series from the defense. Maybe the only one apart from getting the safety in the second half.
Yeah, it was it's fun to watch going down the stretch, and it felt very satisfying to actually get revenge on the Cardinals after we beat ourselves the first time we played them. And then to watch the team actually turn it around off of a bad loss to the Rams that just, it felt, pretty demoralizing. And you really wondered, okay, this is going to be the game that shows me what this team is going to be all about going down the stretch. Because, we've all heard all about the schedule going forward. It's pretty much Cupcakeville up until, the Rams game, which until today, because I hadn't looked at the schedule in a long time, just listening to the national media talk about it, I would have thought that the Rams was the last game of the year for us. But it turns out there's another game after that. We have to play San Francisco.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's...
yeah. But I totally forgot about that because of the way the media covered it. Because they're just falling all over.
It's a collision course between the Seahawks and Rams that comes down to the final week, not really the final week of the season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's 5 weeks between here and there, and a lot of things can happen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I just
the Rams schedule is not a cupcake one either. Although, if you're the media who thinks that the Rams are now the best team in the National Football League for beating a Bucs team that can't win in prime time or always looks terrible in prime time, then okay, then I suppose that schedule of theirs looks easy.
I guess. I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, sure. Should you beat the remaining teams on your schedule in those two terrible Eastern divisions? Sure. Yeah, you should win all those games, but they're not gimmies. Things can happen even from our perspective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody to just be like, oh, yeah, no, this is just a showdown between the Rams and the Seahawks on the last game of the year, which isn't the last game of the year. That'll determine everything in the NFC. Like, let's slow our roll. But because that schedule is fairly easy for us going down the stretch, it was nice to see them get this victory now. This was the game that they needed to prove that it was a get-right game. And not that the Cardinals are world beaters. I mean, they're in that middle of the pack of teams in the NFL. No matter what the announcers would have you believe throughout the game, This was the time. We needed to see it now, and especially sustained from the second half of that Rams game defensive-wise.
Going into this game, there were only 3 teams on the schedule that were sitting at the top of their division schedule-wise, and it was the Cardinals who were tied for the division lead going into this game. You have the Rams that are tied for the division lead that hold the tiebreaker right now, and they face them week 16. And it's this next team coming up, Adam. The Eagles are in the lead in the NFC East. This game coming up is a game against a division leader.
Yeah, I think last time we saw them, they were division leader and in the playoffs. They were. Did they have a losing record going in that year? Was that one of those, or was it they finished 8-8?
I think they finished 8-8 last year.
Yeah. No, the Eagles do not look good at all. I mean, the offense is a mess. I think we can all agree that Frank Reich was the straw that stirred the drink on the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles in their Super Bowl run. Clearly, Wentz hasn't been the same since he left. The weapons just aren't that good. That whole team is, frankly, a total and complete mess. I mean, their defense is the stronger unit between the two. And
and it's
Jim
just
Schwartz
the defensive line, though, because their linebackers aren't good. At corner, they do have Darius Slay. So they have one guy at corner who can play. I was talking to Michael Kist of Bleeding Green Nation, who says that their other 5 corners are nickel corners that they just have moved to the outside. And one of their safeties, I think, is a converted corner. So he's very low on the defensive backs, low on the linebackers. He's counting on the defensive line. But when talking to Eagles fans, it sounds like there's not a whole lot redeeming to this Eagles team. And it makes you worry a little bit, just because this is a game. Well, every single one of these games over the next 4 weeks are ones that they should win.
Yeah, it does make you worry
9-7. Oh, and I meant to mention that it was 9-7 that the Eagles finished the division with last year.
That feels like a mistake. I don't believe it. I think that's fake news. They had to have been 5-12 or something like that. There's no way.
The division winner this year, though, Adam, could win with 5 wins.
Yeah.
We could have a 5-win team in the playoffs this year.
Yeah. The NFC East is a marker of futility. There's no doubt about it. So, look, these next 4 to 5 weeks, starting with the Eagles, is going to be Russell Wilson's chance to go out and really reestablish himself as the front runner for the MVP. And this is where he does it. This is where you rack up the numbers. Sometimes things just have to go your way, in lucky ways. And this year, it happened to be the break of getting to play the 2 worst divisions in football. And you got to put up the numbers when you get that shot. And what I'd love to see over these next 4 weeks, if they could just not do what they usually do against these sort of teams. And that's play down to that competition, keep it close for no reason, and then have to pull the rabbit out of their hat in the end. Let's cruise to victory for a few weeks here. Okay. Let's do that.
If there's one thing that I could see going poorly for Seattle is, losing turnovers that they just shouldn't lose. The Eagles have been worst in the league in terms of turnover differential. So, maybe some of the luck starts going back their direction. And that would be something that would keep them in this game, giving the teams a short field. One of the things, another thing that I looked at going into this game against the Eagles, they're the team that allows the shortest field to opposing offenses in the league this year. So you look at the standings and their pass defense, they're like top 6 in the league at passing yards. And it's because of that short field that teams don't need to drive all that far to get a touchdown against this Eagle team because they're putting the ball on the ground on their own side of the field regularly.
Oh, I was going to guess it was because they had a lot of 3 and outs and their punter sucks.
No, I mean their pass defense. You would think that they had good corners because they're only allowing 200 passing yards a game.
I was picking up what you were putting down. What I was saying is the creation of those short fields. It wasn't that the offense necessarily was turning it over all the time, but more maybe they were just 3 and out, then had a catfish.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, so it's a perfect the storm dumpster fire. This Eagles team.
Well, and the thing is that with the way Carson Wentz has been playing, the way for them to get right is for them to run the football and give them 3rd and shorts. And the thing is that the Seahawks run defense is actually pretty good.
And so you take away that one, kind of safety blanket that Wentz could have, just get him out there and make him throw the ball around a little bit because he hasn't been accurate. He has been making terrible decisions. He has been a turnover machine. He's been, that little stretch there where Russell, turned the ball over quite a bit. That's been Wentz all year.
All year.
Yeah. He hasn't been able to shake it.
Even when he has no pressure, a clean pocket to throw in, he's thrown 10 touchdowns and he's thrown 9 picks. Like he almost has a reverse TD to INT ratio in a clean pocket, which it's not good.
It's not good. So let's hope that this isn't the week that he gets right. I mean, reading a couple of Eagles articles, they're like, well, if this is ever going to turn around, this would be the week against this defense, right? And this week is going to show us a lot about, is this defensive turnaround with the magical kumbaya meeting like a real thing, or is it a mirage?
The other thing that you have to watch, you have DK Metcalf out there advocating for Jalen Hurts to come in and be the starting quarterback.
Why is that a story?
He was on social media and somebody posted a graphic about should Jalen Hurts come in and be the starting quarterback for the Eagles. And I think DK underneath posted yes.
Wow.
Because I think he knows that Jalen Hurts is the inferior quarterback.
Maybe that's it. I was going to say groundbreaking. What an amazing story. Like, I'm so glad the media picked up and ran with that. I mean, if I hadn't known that, my life would be just incomplete and empty.
What you're not into the athletes throwing shade at other athletes stories that come from social media?
Okay. Hey, I get it. And some of them are fine. Right. But
yeah, just like because Bruce Irvin saying it ain't easy being Sweezy. I want to see those articles.
Bruce Irvin tweeting that he had the same amount of sacks as Clowney. Now that okay. I get that. But for DK to just say, yes. Oh my goodness. Wow. What a story.
I think that they were reporting it wrong, though. I think they were pointing to the fact that he thinks that Carson Wentz is bad. And no, that's not why he was saying yes. He was saying yes because he knows that Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And it would behoove the Seahawks to have Hurts on the field for this game rather than Wentz.
Yeah, a rookie quarterback who's not really a quarterback. Yeah, that'd be better for our deal.
Who is behind an offensive line that's busted up without their all-pro guard. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, put Hurts back there.
Yeah, let's do that. Just the things that people latch onto. Another thing that people latch onto, and this is something I definitely wanted to talk about. The only reason the Seahawks shut down the Cardinals is because Kyler hurt his poor little shoulder.
Yeah, because he was on the sideline throwing the ball in and kind of wincing a little bit.
That was the whole thing. He's still the MVP front runner and the future of the league. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah, we're going to be dealing with this for a while. Fortunately, it's only going to be. I think so.
Are we? I don't know. I think the bloom's going to come off of this desert rose sooner than later.
You don't think that 2 quarterbacks that are about 5'9", 5'10" between Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, respectively, that they're not going to continue making those comparisons as long as Kyler Murray continues to be in the league?
There you hit it on the head.
I threw that in there just for you.
Yeah, because I don't think that this, Kyler Kingsbury marriage is going to last more than about another 2 years. I think it's good. Yeah, but I think Kyler's going to continue to be the quarterback, and it may be Kingsbury that moves on. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Kyler Murray has some staying power there at the Cardinals.
I think he's got about as much.
I bet it's. I don't know if he'll outlast, Russell Wilson in the league. If I had to bet, I would say Russell outlasts him in the league, but I think Murray has 10 years.
Wow. I give Murray about the same amount of time as every other OU quarterback as a viable starter in this league. So
Bradford put in about 10 years.
As a viable starter?
Well, I mean, what's your argument for viable starter? I don't know if you would ever argue that Sam Bradford was a viable starter.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's my entire point. So Bradford was I'll give him like a year of being a viable starter. Otherwise he was injured or sucking it up. Then you got Baker, and he's about to get run out of town in Cleveland. And now you got Kyler. It's going to be the same thing. I know that hurts your heart because you're a boomer Sooner and all that.
I will admit that OU quarterbacks have not fared well in the NFL over the years.
I'm just saying we're not going to have to deal with this conversation much longer because Kyler will be done.
And hey, I just got done throwing Jalen Hurts under the bus as being an inferior quarterback. So I don't.
Well, you keep calling him by the wrong position. That's what I can't understand.
Well, he played quarterback at OU.
He played something. That was a version of quarterback, like from 1938 or something.
He threw to a lot of wide open guys. So
they were, they were. And
something. That's the thing that I just don't get from Eagles fans. Just because your team overdrafted a quarterback does not mean that you should put him in to the game. I know you want to see what they have, but the coaches see what they have in practice. And based on what they've seen from Carson Wentz on the actual field, if they knew that Jalen Hurts gave them a better chance to win games going down the stretch when the division is wide open to be won by any of these teams, they would have put Jalen Hurts into the game by now.
Absolutely. Because at that point, if he was actually good and he got you into the playoffs and he felt like your guy or could be your guy going forward, holy smokes, now do you have some trade capital, whether that's Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts, right?
Right.
And look, Philly fans, I'll give them a little bit of a pass on that because honestly, they've never been in love with Carson Wentz. He didn't even win them the Super Bowl. Like
no.
They genuinely believe that Nick Foles is a superior player.
There were some making that case for it, yeah. And I suppose there's an argument for that now.
So of course they want to see Hurts. They're just over Wentz. He's not a guy that has been embraced in that market. And look, his quality of play has really hurt that. There's no doubt about it.
Well, hopefully this isn't the get right game for the Eagles this week. I don't think it will be. They need to continue to play the press coverage on defense because I'm just worried that they're going to go back to soft zone. Carson Wentz is going to get in a groove, throwing to wide open dudes down the field, a lot like they gave all of those throws to Josh Allen in the Bills game.
Yep.
I don't want to see that happen again here to the Eagles and to where they don't even need to think about running the football.
Well, maybe they should make Ken Norton talk about his job prior to that game. And part of his job description should be, I will not just play my corners 10 yards off. Part of my job is to make sure that they play up on the receivers.
I would like to see that. And Shaquille Griffin coming back this week. Mm-hmm. Chris Carson coming back this week. I don't think we even mentioned that other injuries with Greg Olsen going to IR with a plantar fascia injury. You mentioned Bo Scarborough. Brandon Shell will be interesting to see if he can play in this game with this high ankle sprain. Posic's coming back, so Lewis can move back to guard.
Yeah, it's cool to see the team kind of come together health-wise. It was kind of nice to get that, kind of suffer that war of attrition of injuries earlier in the year this year than we have in the past. I mean, the last two seasons have been just, okay, this team's coming together. It's looking good. Then all of a sudden, like last year, every running back that's ever worn a Seattle uniform, I think, got hurt that week. Yeah. I think Ricky Waters was at home and twisted his ankle. Like it was so bad. This year, at least it happened earlier in the year, and we're getting everybody back. I think Chris Carson's addition to this game is going to be gigantic. I think you can see the offense easily put up that 35, 38 points again. And, if the defense holds the Eagles offense back to where you probably ought to in that 21-point range, this is going to look like a statement win, even though it's kind of like 4 weeks of practice till you play the Rams.
Yeah, we're getting our actual preseason in at this point of the season is how it feels. I know the Seahawks aren't going to think that way. I mean, really, it speaks to, Adam, that anything less than 4-0 over the next 4 weeks feels unacceptable.
Oh, it absolutely does. You need to get the gimmies when you can get them. You got to stack the wins, especially when you have the Saints somehow still with only 2 losses after losing their starting quarterback.
That was just one game, right? Well, I guess they won the game with Bridgewater coming in relief, and then they won last week.
Jameis coming in relief.
Oh, yeah. Who did I say?
Bridgewater. Oh. He's been the starter in Carolina all year.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. And then Taysom Hill getting the start this last week, which I thought that'd be fascinating. I watched all of 3 plays of that, and then I decided to go outside and do something.
It was not fascinating to you?
I wanted it to be. And maybe I was like, I think I could get the gist of it just out of the highlights. So I think I'm going to go back and watch it that way.
Okay, so the thing with the New Orleans Saints over these next 3 weeks, it's probably not going to tell us a ton. I guess Denver did get a nice win over Miami this last week, so maybe the Broncos could play the Saints tough. But it's a 3-game road stretch now for the New Orleans Saints. On the road to the Broncos, on the road to the Falcons, on the road to the Eagles. All losing teams, but all on the road.
Because that matters now.
Well, it doesn't really matter, but it's notable.
Is it?
I feel like it's worth pointing out.
I think maybe it's time for us to stop, really caring if they're home and away this year.
I don't know. The Seahawks are undefeated at home.
Yeah, at Lumen Field. You loving that name change?
Yeah, I love it. We're undefeated at Lumen Field.
Yeah. It doesn't make much of a difference to me. This is why I think corporate sponsorships for stadium names are stupid. Because all of a sudden your team's home stadium is now just called something else.
Yeah, in the middle of the season.
Yeah. Like,
they just decide before the game, oh, yeah, this is what it's called now.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't even have to go and paint the new name up on the roof before we start calling it that?
Yeah, it's like when millennials took the pound sign and just started calling it the hashtag. It just they just changed it. Didn't make an announcement. It just happened.
Fortunately, you're not as invested in the pound sign as you are in the name of the stadium in which the Seahawks play.
I feel about 50-50 on this. Little column A, little column B. Yeah. Like I feel strongly about this anti hashtag thing because it's just the wrong name. It's like if I just started calling like dogs a hose, just gave it a new name totally.
You know what? I could be on board with you, maybe even feeling more strongly about that because the corporate sponsorship side, I'm kind of the energy that I feel like I should put into being upset about the name change and not having any control over it. Mm. Yeah, I feel like that's a waste of time and energy.
Yeah. A lot of real difficult for me to find a lot of cares to spare.
I told myself going into this game, I was going to like the name based on their performance on the field in the first game in this newly named stadium. Okay. And so now I've decided that I love it because they won.
Yeah. It's an illuminating comment by you.
Let's get to the second half of the show. I kind of want to go back a little bit because the Seahawks just finished up getting through this 5-game stretch that going into these last 5 games, I think we said that 3-2 would be okay. 4-1 would be great. And they come out 2-3. And I just kind of wanted to get your perspective now that we're through that 5 games. If 2-3, how do you feel about that now that the Seahawks are through those 5 games?
It's a lot of meh. And kind of the reason for that is the injuries were so pronounced through that stretch. And so it's hard to really gauge what we have here because at the time you kind of needed your dudes the most. We didn't have our dudes. And that makes it really tough. And then also too, you look back on it. I mean, that Cardinals game, the first one, we gave that away. Yeah. Like that's super duper frustrating. Then to lay an egg against the Rams, I think that's the one that pisses me off the most. Mm-hmm. Because you just shouldn't lose to that team. You just shouldn't. So it is frustrating, but they didn't go 0-5. They didn't go 1-4. Like, yeah, they actually went 2-3.
2-3 with one game that they gave away essentially to the Cardinals.
Right. So at that point, and then, the loss to the Bills, that was tough to swallow too, Yeah. But
that was one, the Bills one is kind of the least concerning because so many of us looked at that game early on in the season and thought, okay, if they're going to lose one game on the road, it would be to a Bills team. Now, we didn't know that the defense for the Bills was going to be as average as I think we looked at that being an exceptional defense and a strong defensive line. So my thinking on it definitely changed as the year went on as to whether or not the Seahawks could and should win that game. But when you consider the injuries, when you consider the giveaway game to the Cardinals, it's understandable, I guess, that they could be 2-3. But yeah, I'd feel a whole lot better if they finished 3-2, and even if it was just beating the Rams.
I think that was the one. I mean, I would have traded, that Niners win for a win over the Rams and still be 2-3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you would have asked me that going into the Niners game. I don't know if I would have said that, but because I really wanted them to win that game too.
Oh, of course. And yeah,
trying to figure out my Rams versus Niners hatred this year has been awfully difficult. Yeah.
I mean, they both kind of rise up and take the mantle now and then as your most hated team, like, us as a fan base, right? It's tough to kind of deal with. I guess I've kind of settled on, like, I just kind of view them as like the Axis powers in World War II, right? And like, so I can hate Italy and Germany at the same time just as much. Yeah, I can do that. And that's how I do it with the Rams and the Niners. Now,
Rams and the Niners are Italy and Germany in World War II.
Yeah. Or maybe Japan and Germany. I mean, take your pick, whatever. I think Japan and Germany. I think that's a closer historical.
Because Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah. So Germany and Japan. And then, I hate the Cardinals like I would hate Italy in that situation where, like, yeah, they're there.
There we go. Yeah, because I have a hard time remembering why I'm mad at Italy.
Right. I mean, because they showed up. They tried, I guess. I don't know. But it was hilarious to read different articles, and one that I think Amy posted in the Ring of Honor, where the writer refers to the Cardinals as rivals of the Seahawks, and that cracked my ass up. Like, really? Okay. Well, let me know when you guys are consistently year in and year out an actual team.
Yeah, I know. I think I called the Eagles a rival just based on how many times that we've played that team over the last few years. But I don't think Russell Wilson has lost to the Eagles. So I probably misspoke on that myself.
Yeah, 5-0. 5-0.
Russell Wilson, fastest quarterback to 93 wins, Adam.
Wonderful. Because I don't know if you knew this, Brandon, and I don't know if other people know this either, but he didn't win 93 games all by himself.
No, but okay. So I feel like I kind of need to referee this fight between the wins isn't a quarterback stat crowd.
It isn't.
But I think there's people that are part of Stat Nerd Nation that are like hardcore die on the hill. Quarterback wins are not a stat. And I can understand that because, you can point to a guy like Blake Bortles getting 10 wins in 2017. It doesn't have anything to do with Blake Bortles being good at playing quarterback. Trent Dilfer going 7-1 in the regular season and 4-0 in the playoffs in 2000 didn't make him an elite quarterback. But being the fastest quarterback to 93 wins is absolutely an achievement. Is it entirely due to Russ? Like you said, no, it's not. But it has a lot to do with it. You have to have talent. You have to have consistency. You have to have health. And you also have to have the rest of the organization be good, make good personnel moves. So it's, in one way, it's an organizational award, but in another way, it is your quarterback having a big part of that achievement.
Yeah, I think it's a partnership award. The organization and Russ kind of shake hands and they say, "Good job, buddy." And, we did it. We got to 93 wins.
Faster than any other team.
Yeah. So good job. Look, the one place that you can kind of say that quarterback wins is a stat is if that quarterback performs consistently over a long period of time, and you can tell that he is the difference maker in terms of 50% of those 93 wins becoming losses, right?
Yeah, like I'm saying, it has to do with the talent and health and consistency of the quarterback over a long term. You look at the winningest quarterbacks of all time, it's all the good ones.
Right.
There's no slouches in there.
Right.
Where you go, oh, well, that guy doesn't belong.
Right. Yeah. It turns out organizations don't stick with a guy who sucks for a long time if the rest of the team's
or
really
have a good enough defense to be able to carry a quarterback over a 15-year career.
Well, it's a lot harder to make sure you have 11 badasses out there at a time than just one badass out there at a time.
Well, we're seeing that this year, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just the nature of the league. That's why the league has shifted the way that it has. I mean, sure. Can you still win a championship with defense and running the ball? Absolutely. Without question. And I think it's the more consistent way to do it in terms of, ensured success for a season or two, but you don't keep a 2000 Ravens together for 7 years. You used to do that back in the 70s with like the Steelers, right? Because of the salary cap. It's just impossible now. But you can win consistently over a decade when you have a great quarterback and a god amongst men like Russell Carrington Wilson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's out there making over people's houses with Sierra.
He's making out people's houses with Sierra.
Well, he worked with Amazon, and Amazon made over the house. But you didn't see the story about the Seattle Children's Hospital nurse who had a bunch of flooding in his house, and so it was Russell Wilson, Sierra, and Amazon. They did a makeover of his house.
Yeah. So I'm not married, so I don't watch HGTV.
I think this was an actual network show. I think it was like NBC Today or something, or whatever the Today show is on.
Yeah. I cut the cord too, so I don't watch any of that stuff.
I didn't watch it live. I saw the story on the news because I follow Seahawks news, Adam.
You watched it live. You had your popcorn ready. You and the missus sat down and watched it. You painted her toenails. Don't lie.
Or Flocktimus Prime posted it in the Discord on the Better at Life section, and I happened to see it that way. One of the two.
No, that can't be true.
We count on our members of the flock sometimes to hook us up with stories, and you just have to know where to look.
Yeah. No, it's pretty much everything for me. For example, like this last Sunday, I paid zero attention to football because the Seahawks weren't involved.
It was great.
Yeah, it was a stress-free Sunday. I sawed up wood. It was great.
I did watch a little bit, though. What game did I end up watching on Sunday?
I
don't know why I'm asking you that question.
Yeah.
It's more toward myself, but
yeah. I wasn't there.
I did watch a little bit of Eagles Browns.
Do you hate yourself on the inside?
I mean, it wasn't the greatest game in the world. It was kind of sloppy because I couldn't get a whole lot out of the Eagles because it was just a rainy game where, they were trying to run it, and not a great game.
So what you're saying is it was a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess.
So I think what you got out of it is exactly what you should have when it comes to Eagles football this year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Watched the little Titans-Ravens. Got to see Derrick Henry score the winning touchdown in that game.
Okay.
Texans beat the Patriots.
Yeah. All these AFC games don't care. It's crazy how much, as I've gotten older, how much I literally don't care about the AFC.
At all?
I really I have a hard time following, anything that's going on in the AFC.
Yeah.
It really falls into the category of doesn't matter to me. I don't know how. I didn't see this coming.
The Bills are dead to you. You just care about, who's going to impact the Seahawks the most until you are forced to watch the AFC. Well, you'd probably watch all the AFC teams in the playoffs.
No, I honestly don't. I mean, I watched Chiefs a little bit this last year, but that was it. I could give a rip of what's happening in the AFC until the Super Bowl. It's mainly because short of the Chiefs, I think the AFC is in general, and it has been for the last 5 years, inferior football.
Yeah.
The majority of the better teams have been in the NFC. I think it's more entertaining football.
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it.
What else football-wise can I make fun of this episode? I'm going hard at everything today. I overkilled Kyler and said that he sucked multiple times. And to be fair, he doesn't suck. He's actually, middle of the road.
Yeah, he's the second best quarterback in the division.
Yeah, bar low. Yeah.
Well, we set the bar high for our members of the flock, Adam, and we got some new people coming in this week.
Oh, fantastic. I guess they appreciated our short week work. That was harder to say than you think.
Our short work week? Our short work week?
Yeah, try it. Say it in your car 3 times fast while you're driving down the interstate. Nobody will think you're weird at all.
Short work week.
Yeah. See?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think we just stumbled across a tongue twister.
I guess so. Well, fortunately, we have some new flockers to pick our spirits up since we can't talk.
Yeah, Joe Coe comes in at $3 a month. Welcome to the flock to Joe.
Hey, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Andrew Rosbond comes in at $36.12, an annual donation of $301 a month. I like how it gets to $36.12. That's nice.
Yeah, that's fancy math. I wonder if he used like trig to figure that out or something else that I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. He probably 12 divided by 12, I think, is a pretty easy.
I don't need your facts, logic, and
equation
reason
to work out.
I don't need your facts, logic, and reason how this happened. I just was saying he's a very smart guy.
Pietro Barron comes in at £3 a month. I think that works out to our $5 a month club in actual American dollars. Welcome to the flock to Pietro.
Is that in gold? Do we get £3 in gold? Is it in bullion?
3 English pounds.
Oh, okay. I was kind of hoping it was in bullion. Or however you say that.
Well, £3 of gold, I think, would do pretty well for the show.
That's why I was hopeful for such things.
I mean, if he were an actual Baron, then I suppose that that would be an acceptable donation.
Yeah, you pay for everything in gold ingots. That's how you do things.
Johnny D from Silverton, Oregon comes in through PayPal, Seahawkerspodcast.com/support, with a donation of $24.24.
All these fancy numbers. That's very very smart of the little flockers this week.
And Johnny D sends in an email. Oh, he sent in a couple of emails to explain why the previous losses were on him. So I'll skip over that since we're back to winning.
Yes.
Johnny says, I've also further cleansed my Hakra by renewing my contribution to the show. I had put this off due to the fact that after the amazing start of the season, my quote-unquote renewal would only cause a shift in the good fortune of the Hawks. I have now come to the point where I have no clue if my renewal at this point in the season will provide a positive or negative shift to the Hawks, and I believe that the football gods are just as confused as I am. Well, see, it came through and we won, Johnny D.
Mm-hmm.
To some, this may seem crazy, but to the many out there that can't view Charlie Day's harrowing events in episode 8 and 9 of season 13 of It's Always Sunny as more of an epic real-life sports thriller than the slapstick comedy it was meant to portray, I can take comfort in knowing that I have done all that I can do to help the Hawks in the pursuit of another Super Bowl season. In seriousness, though I am serious about the superstitions, you two and this podcast have been the needed consistency, and a year in many ways seems like someone writing a story with an Etch-a-Sketch. Throughout all the highs and lows of this year, the podcast has the light at the end of the tunnel that the weekend was near, and I could relax for a few minutes, listen to Adam complain, which is always appreciated. Side note, I have re-listened to the airline fiasco a few times, as that was an A+ rant, and Brandon keeping the show on tracks. I really enjoy Sam, and it was great to have him back. Let's get this W. Let's have a strong showing from the D, as I know it's going to be better throughout the season. I want Snacks to dominate so bad. We all know we are going to go crazy on offense, and I think Carson should have a good second half. I won't say my renewal will lead to that directly, but I also won't say it didn't help if he goes off for a franchise record. Thank you both again for all that you do, as I mean it with the utmost sincerity that what you are making is not only amazing for a Seahawks podcast, but also as a sports-based comedy-themed podcast recorded out of the state of Montana that comes out on a mostly weekly basis. I challenge anyone to find a better one with those qualifiers. I know I am not alone in Oregon, the PNW, the US, or even the world in thinking this. Keep up the amazing work. Keep fighting the good fight of yards don't matter. Here is to another season of dominating the NFC West and making a long run into the playoffs. One last important point that I was missing from a previous email was catfish the Rams, catfish the Niners, catfish the Cardinals, and as always, go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks, Johnny D. Look, he gets it. He gets the show, like all the way around, and I appreciate that.
I love all the qualifiers. We need to put that up on our page. The best sports-based comedy-themed podcast recorded out of the state of Montana that comes out on a mostly weekly basis. We need that as a tagline to the show.
Yeah, the only thing I would amend to that is I would start the whole thing with the number one podcast.
Right.
Yeah. Not the best, the number one. Because then it sounds like there's an actual list of podcasts about Seahawks football recorded from Montana on a mostly weekly basis.
It's like how I put on my resume that in the state of Montana back in 97, I was the number 2 COBOL programmer in the state of Montana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, look, I can say with confidence, Brandon, that I'm in the top 3 of wheel grinders in the world.
Wow.
That's my job, and I'm top 3 in the world at it. I'm world class is really what I was getting at. Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, the 17 of us, just killing it out here.
So you're top 3 in your profession.
Yeah.
I was top 2 in a programming language that I had never even tried to program in high school.
Yeah, because it was you and who?
It was Chad.
Oh, yeah. So he was number 1.
He was number 1 because he actually knew how to,
right.
He actually knew some of the answers.
Hey, yeah, exactly. And the best part is not a lie. If you put that on the resume, not a lie.
I qualified for nationals based on that performance.
Sometimes it pays to be from a small place, huh?
I don't remember how I performed nationally, but I'm sure I
wasn't number 2, huh?
I wasn't number 2.
Yeah.
I did not get a plaque for it.
That's disappointing.
Well, we'll give a plaque to one more of our members of the flock. James Bacon comes in with $3 a month. James's last name is Delicious.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I'm sure he's never heard that before either.
Never. I mean, the best part about this humor-based football podcast is that all of our jokes, super original.
And we nail them every time.
Every time. Like bacon nails being tasty every time.
Just like our executive producers nail it at executive producering the show every single week. So a big thanks to Dustin Mock and Brian Shaw.
In the history of executive producing, they're just on another level. I mean,
they're in the top 2 of executive producers of the Seahawkers podcast.
Yeah.
Every single week.
Most weeks. Yeah.
We'll get into our Pick'em update here. If you want to get in on our Tiny Pieces of Seahawks stuff giveaway for the month, go to tinypiecesofseahawksstuff.com. You can go to getintheflock.com to become a member of the flock. And we have our Pick'em League going. I don't think we looked back at week 10 yet. And it was Pancakes Over Waffles who had 12 picks correct, who got the win.
Well, I guess they needed that win badly. Since they're so wrong about breakfast pastries and such things.
That's pretty strong when, you come with a bad take so strongly that you make it your team name for the Pick'em League.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, not all of us can be on the right side of history,
Maybe he just hasn't had a good waffle yet.
Well, how could you have a bad waffle? Even Eggos are good.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And really, the reason I wanted to really get back into the pancakes versus waffles thing, because I don't want to talk about how I haven't even really made picks the last 2 weeks and I've kind of dropped out. So
you care about the Pick'em League as much as you do AFC football, apparently.
Here's the thing. Now I got to figure it out. I actually blame the AFC and their boring football so much for the fact that I have zero interest in making my picks for half the league because I just don't care. It's really the AFC's fault for that. And so, yeah, they know what they do.
Well, one of these years when you get your cabin squared away and you can, concentrate on things other than chopping wood during the week, maybe we can get back to doing pick shows and you can get back to making picks.
Hey, maybe. And I did focus on something outside of just firewood. I built a giant rack of solar panels. And
that's right.
Put them up. Yeah. So that was cool. That's what's powering this podcast right now.
I thought we were already on solar panel power, but we're on new solar panel power.
Yeah. And I made it's like a 10-foot tall rack. It looks very imposing now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like an actual utility out here,
You're making energy.
Yeah. I think what I really am getting at here is that don't get too used to Lumen Field, the name, because my new utility that I just started up here on Sunday, that is going to be the next corporate naming partner with the Seahawks here. And I'm going to name the stadium next year. It's just a matter of time. It's happening.
We need the sponsorship for Adams Solar Field. Right. And I think that now that you have that this is a perfect opportunity.
I think now that I'm thinking about this, I'm doing this all wrong. What I need somebody to sponsor my solar panel farm here and get the naming rights. So right now, for any of you who are interested, if you want to make an offer to buy the naming rights to my field of solar panels.
Ooh,
yeah,
I like this.
Yeah, but be competitive with your offer. I mean, no low balls here.
Don't just come in with anything.
And we all know how much I like creative names too. So don't come at me with something lame.
Speaking of lame, Quandre 3000 came in week 10 with also had 12 games correct, but he picked one of the games incorrectly. And so we need to remind people that you risk disqualification by picking against the Seahawks. And Quandre 3000 had 12 games correct with picking the Rams over the Seahawks, and that is not acceptable.
That's not acceptable. What kind of quandary did that put you in?
Well, for one, it was inconsequential because Pancakes over Waffles had the tiebreaker anyway for getting his picks in first. But then when I went in and corrected Quandre 3000's picks, as well as everyone else who picked the Rams instead of the Seahawks, then it fixed it. I set things right.
So basically the two people that were competing for the lead that week, they both did things wrong. Quandre 3000 picked the Rams, and our Pancakes over Waffles picked the Pancakes.
Pick Pancakes.
Yeah.
Of the two things, the picking Pancakes is the least offensive, though.
Yes, I can agree with you there. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the solar panel story because it was able to buy me some time to pull up the standings for week 11. And more DT Please came in at 11 wins, got the tiebreaker over Dr. Jamal, Mr. Hyde. So congratulations there. And week 10 winner, week 11 winner, and Adam disappeared from me, and I'm not getting your video now.
I did. You're right. You're not getting my video because now that I'm doing everything on the tablet here at the cabin in the woods, I got to look up my Better at Life and Do Betters right now. So because
I was looking at the standings and all of a sudden you were gone. So
yeah,
all right.
It might not be a shock to most people, but I usually don't put a lot of thought into this until about right now.
Well, I will give you a little bit more time because I do need to point out that Quandre 3000, Adam, is Jeremy, our trivia guy.
Wait a second. Yeah. Wow. Jeremy, come on, man.
I know.
Hey, I got a trivia question for Jeremy.
I'm ready for it.
Okay. Which little flocker will be banned from the Pick'em League if they continue to pick against the Seahawks?
Answer?
Quandre 3000.
I'm tempted to say Barry the football team too, but at least he has like another team name within his team name.
Yes, exactly. And well, look, and Barry's not a Seahawks fan, so he can do whatever he wants.
I think Barry is the one exception that I make.
Well, there's an exception to every rule. And, you know, I mean, he's our one guy that's like, actually.
If you're a fan of another team and listen to the show and play the Pick'em League with us, yes. And you put the team name that you're a fan of in your Pick'em League title.
Right.
Have I listed enough qualifiers for
yes.
this rule?
Yes.
Okay. That's what makes it acceptable.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you want to be part of our mailbag, go Hawks at SeahawkersPodcast.com. Chad Hawley comes in through getintheflock.com and says, healthy overreaction Monday. DJ Reed is a much better starting cornerback than Quentin Dunbar was anyway. I don't wish injuries on anyone, but this one may end up being a blessing in disguise. Go Hawks.
Oh, God, yes, please. More DJ Reed, less Quentin Dunbar. That's been a revelation. I definitely think that he's probably our second best corner on the team, if not first. I mean,
I don't know if I mean, Shaquille Griffin, I think, will continue to be the first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see if I don't think DJ Reed has the size where they would like to start him over Trey Flowers on the other side. So I think Reed's. I honestly think that if you put Ugo on the outside, it would look a lot like DJ Reed. So I would say that DJ Reed might even be fourth on the depth chart.
Yeah, let's slot our depth chart by size and not by who can play like that. Let's do that. I do think that Ugo's been playing awesome though. Like, I mean, he's made some big plays over the last couple of weeks. He's been very consistent. He's a total find. I mean, you got to give John Schneider credit there.
And out of all the corners that hit, I think I like his hits better than, even the bigger corners.
Oh, he does. I mean, he's been a sure tackler. Yeah, I'm into it. I'm into the DJ Reed experiment.
Got an email here, or maybe this came in as a review. From Adrian in Squim, Washington, says, I have to say, you guys are the best podcast I have heard in a long time, and I think that I just found you guys a year ago. I've searched far and wide for 6 years. For 6 years, I would drag into the week, suffering the mainstream podcasts, and here, the defense is great, but the offense is bad to overcome. Now I go through withdrawals, waiting for your pods. I love Adam's rants and Brandon's logic, and I wish the Hawks would get back to the ground and pound game. In my opinion, that's how the Hawks go all the way. DK is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFC, and Russ is as good as they get. And Carson is the most underrated back in the last 15 years, and the D can be a top 3 D next year. Overall, this is the best pod ever. With all that said, go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks, Adrian. Yeah, I mean, I'm not great at rating the D and which D is better than other D and what kind of D you might want. But yeah, maybe they could be the number 3 D when it's all said and done next year. It's hard telling, not knowing.
It is. I think you're counting on the rookies on the defensive line making a big jump and Dunlap staying with the Seahawks in the offseason.
Yeah.
There's lots to talk about here.
Hey, I think
let's come back to Adrian's comment about how the D can be a top 3 defense. Well, this would be a good offseason topic. Remind us, Adrian.
I think John Schneider through the draft can give me the D next year.
You just... I'd like to see him give you the D.
Yeah, all I want him to do is just to give me some more D, and it would make this team a lot better. So,
is the title of the episode John Schneider giving Adam the D?
Is it not? I just kick it out of my head because Johnny D talking about the D, and then talking the D. Adrian wants more D.
And then you had to say it like 5 times before I think I finally got it.
Yeah. I just kept going with it. A little more D would be good,
Yeah. We all need some D in our life.
We do. Sometimes there's not enough D, and I can't tell what the good D and the bad D is. I'm not, if it's the number 3 D or not.
See, that was the part of it where I was like, where is he going with this? Moving on. Quandre Ramirez, Quentin comes in. I'm sitting here trying to watch this Arizona game, and it got me wondering, why don't we have the option to choose a content creator of some sort to commentate these games instead of the same old boneheads? Just a thought. I'm pretty tired of these guys ruining a perfectly good football game. Let's face the facts, logic, and reason here. Go Hawks.
Yeah, go
Quentin.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling where Quentin's coming from here because there are just times when the announcing crews are just, and there's some guys that do a great job, but there's some.
It's just Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman is the problem here.
Is it? I mean, there's other guys that rub me the wrong way, but I think there's got to be a way in today's day and age with the fast internet that everybody pretty much has. Like, we have to be able to somehow have the NFL and the networks still make their money off of people being able to choose who they want to commentate. So, like, for example, if for some reason people wanted us to commentate a game, right?
Yeah.
Then they should be able to choose us. And yet, if they're playing on Fox still gets their money, right? But you just don't have to listen to Charles Davis tell you all about the most basic thing that's ever happened in football. So right. I would kind of think that this is possible. They're just never going to do it.
Oh, it's possible, especially the whole Amazon device thing showed us last year, and maybe they're even still doing it this year. I just don't watch via Amazon, but they made that ability there for Thursday Night Football. They had an alternate crew to call games. Mm-hmm. So you could pull that up and, whether or not it gets into the list of whether you could have, professionals or indie people calling the games. I think that would be kind of neat to make that option available. And you could just, because then you would have a pipeline of people that you could find out if they're good or not.
Absolutely. Because it's all about competition, right?
Yeah.
This would be a way to make it so that these broadcasters who are on the whole not good, always compete. I think we need this in broadcast media today.
We do. All right, Adam, one more email before getting into Do Better and Better at Life. Jason sent us an email. He said the loss to the catfishing Rams was tragic, but not as tragic as what has happened to a friend's brother 2 weeks ago. He was driving in Central Oregon on his way to his construction job when he was killed by a driver coming the opposite way, trying to pass a line of vehicles in front of her. He was a diehard Seahawks fan, even though his family is from Kansas and his sister, my friend, wears Chiefs red and yellow on Sundays. He had struggled with substance abuse issues, but was on the straight and narrow, helping other friends stay clean, and was planning to get married next month and have kids. Based on all accounts, he was an awesome uncle. Ryan James Giles was only 26. His family started a memorial fund in his name to help other young people on their path to recovery. Addiction has impacted the families and lives of so many, including myself and likely other flockers out there. I know our flockers have huge hearts for both our flock and those who make poor life decisions, and I wanted to share this opportunity to support addiction recovery services in my friend's brother's name. If you could help a flocker out, please share this GoFundMe link, and this will be in the show notes, with our people in Ryan James's name. Thanks, fellas. Go Hawks.
Oh, man. Well, anything I know that we can do to help as the flock, we always do. And that definitely seems like a worthy cause. I mean, man, sometimes it's just not fair. You start to get it back together and something like that happens, and it's tragic.
Yeah, so if you go to GoFundMe.com, it's the Ryan Gile Memorial Fund right now. As we're recording, they're at $2,000 of their $10,000 goal. So yeah, anything that we can do to help promote that as well. And because it does sound like a worthy cause, Jason, to have some funds for addiction recovery services.
You betcha, no doubt.
On to do better and better at life.
All right, Brandon. So for my do better this week, I actually just sent you a picture text.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So open that up.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because my do better this week is kind of a joint do better between the Hermit Kingdom, North Korea, Fox News, and the U.S. Naval Institute. And since you're a Navy guy, I wanted to make sure you saw this graphic that the U.S. Naval Institute tweeted out, because the title of the story here by Fox News is North Korea may be militarizing dolphins, report says.
Uh-huh.
So this whole story, number one, is so that we should all be afraid of the militarized dolphins. Like, this isn't freaking Flipper, okay? Like, I mean, I'm not, especially here in Montana, you know what I'm not afraid of? North Korean dolphins. Like, that doesn't.
No, that's not on your list of worries?
No, it's just not on my list of worries. And also, within this do better, like, what's Kim Jong-un doing here? Like, is he just like really going back and watching Austin Powers in like trying to be Dr. Evil? Like, instead of having, really angry sea bass with freaking lasers on their heads, he's going with dolphins. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just make it fun. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. We all know that you can't trust dolphins to wage war. That's not what they do. And then for the U.S. Naval Institute to put out this tweet, this graphic is so freaking absurd. It's a aerial reconnaissance photo of the North Korean shoreline. They've got a little area kind of blowing up that they're pointing at, that they've named floating pens that apparently they're raising dolphins, or it could just be for agriculture if you read the article, but it definitely militarized dolphins. So sure.
Because it's near the warships. It's right near the two warships that North Korea has.
And here's the best part is they've got a little arrow pointing towards a warship, and then another little arrow pointing towards a shipping yard. And then over top of all of that, like somebody opened Microsoft Paint and got clip art of a dolphin and just like stamped it on top of the whole thing. So this dolphin, which is, if this is to scale that I'm looking at, is about 17 metric miles long. It's hilarious. This whole thing. Like, what are we doing? Like the U.S. Naval Institute is looking out for militarized dolphins. Fox News is reporting on it. And North Korea is even looking into this at all. This whole thing is just a total joke show. Do better.
Are you aware of the fact that the United States has militarized dolphins, Adam?
Yeah, well, okay. Here's the thing. How many wars have they won? How many kills do they have?
0.
Oh, okay. So nifty.
They're a tool in the toolbox.
Is this an arms race? Like, is North Korea, is this like a new Cold War, but with mammals in the sea?
Who can have the best militarized dolphins?
Yeah. Who's got the best porpoises? I don't know.
Maybe North Korea has some other issues to figure out before they get to the training dolphins for military responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm going to go with yeah.
Well, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum of world politics, my do better is for DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh,
DeAndre Hopkins, a couple weeks ago, Adam, after the Cardinals lost to the Miami Dolphins, he was not crying about getting hit late and trying to call for flags. No, he's crying about something else, and that is his statistics. DeAndre Hopkins, after the Cardinals lost to the Miami Dolphins, was advocating in the media for penalty yards to count as receiving yards. Because his concern is that if he gets interfered with consistently, like he did with Xavier Howard in the Miami game, that now all those pass interference penalties where he doesn't catch the ball, those don't count as his yards. And so all of his fantasy owners out there don't get the yardage in their stats. And DeAndre Hopkins doesn't get the yardage in his stats for not making those catches. Hey, how about if you want the yards, fight through the contact, catch the freaking football, and then you get the yards. You don't get yards just because you get interfered with and don't get the contact. We don't need to be adding this in just for fantasy out there to be driving up your points, or if you think that you need those extra yards to get Pro Bowl or All Pro. Stop complaining about contact and yards. Focus on getting wins for your Cardinals team and do better.
Wow. So first off, his argument isn't even so that the yards count. So just like you said, it looks better in like contract negotiations. So he makes more money or gets Pro Bowl nods or, things of that nature. This is about catfish fantasy. He's worried about fantasy people.
I put a lot of words into his mouth here, Adam. I'll tell you the actual quote for sake of transparency. The quote was, "As long as the ball moves, that's all I care about." But I do think the rules should change and receivers should get the counted yards for penalties. And so I am extrapolating that into, yes, he wants it for fantasy. He wants it for his own personal stats, because we all know that everything before the but in the sentence, that doesn't count. So,
right.
Okay. So he's advocating for a rules change that receivers get counted yards for penalties.
Okay, great. So let's say it's not even about fantasy. Maybe it is even just about himself, right? And he wants the yards. But how soft is it for a guy who's playing in the softest era ever when it comes to what defensive backs can do to you, is sitting there whining, complaining that they don't get the penalty yards added on to their attributes. You know what Jerry Rice never complained about? You know what Steve Largent never complained about? Was getting their penalty yards counted towards their stats. What a joke. What a joke. Like, those guys actually, if anybody should have gotten the penalty yards attached to their...
They just didn't throw penalties back in those days.
Yeah,
so you would have to go back and say, and look at all those plays where there should have been, where there was contact and they didn't catch the ball. And because there would be so many of those plays that would be considered pass interference by today's standards.
They would be considered a crime a lot these days. Like, people might be charged for like manslaughter if you played the way they did back in the 60s and 70s today. Like, and for him to go out there and whine that he wants the penalty yards counted as well. Good Lord. That's some weak sauce catfish. Do better, Nuke.
Yeah, well, and do better to Michael David Smith, who wrote this article for Pro Football Talk, because he editorializes in the final sentence of the post saying, Hopkins raises a good point. Statistics should reflect as best they can a player's overall contribution to his team. If the stats don't include a player's ability to draw penalties, they don't tell the whole story. Until we get a pancake stat, Adam,
yes,
I don't want to see a player's ability to draw penalties as a stat in the stat column.
Yeah, no kidding. And not only that, but if you are one of the stat nerds and you like consistency, right, so that you can compare things from the past to the future in the present, right, if you change the way that they accumulate penalty yards towards your yards receiving, then how would you ever know if somebody's having a historical season compared to, say, like Lynn Swann, right?
Yeah.
Fred Biletnikoff.
The only thing I could think of is if you had a new column that was penalty yards.
You know what? They could put in that new column, but they would need to call it yards.
I'm glad you agree.
Because you're a little catfish if you think that should count towards your stats.
On to Better at Life.
My Better at Life this week, Brandon, is for, I don't know who it is, but I know what they did.
You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know who did this. This is a mystery. And
I'm going to lose my bet where you're going with this. Oh, I thought I knew you're Better at Life this week. Okay.
Oh, really? I didn't know you had money on this. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in Utah, geologists have and scientists have found a metal monolith that was somehow inserted somewhere out in the middle of Utah. And it kind of resembles something from 2001, A Space Odyssey. It looks to be a joke to that. But it's just this metal monolith that's like 10 to 12 feet high. And they like had to carve out in the rock to like get it inserted in there so that it would actually stay. And it's apparently, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like somebody had to put a lot of like extra effort to make this happen. And it's kind of pretty. It's like in a little slot canyon kind of. But somebody has a sense of humor because it was clearly like an ode to 2001, A Space Odyssey with the aliens leaving little metal monoliths around. And I thought it was kind of fun. I mean, it's one of those things where like they came upon it. They're like, how long has this been here? Nobody knows. Who put it here? Nobody knows. Is this a joke? Nobody really knows. But it was just kind of put there. And I think it's fun. So to the dude I don't know, Better Life than Skip Bayless.
Well, I guess the SpaceX astronauts, they're not getting a Better at Life this week.
Yeah, it's old news. They've already sent astronauts up. It'd be like my Better at Life this week being that they launched a Falcon 9 yesterday for the 7th time into space. It's been done 6 more times.
Maybe that's fair then. Well, that's what I had. That's what I had my bet on with myself. The
next one from Elon will probably be when they fly the Starship for the first time here in the next couple weeks.
Well, we'll look out for that. Well, my Better at Life, closing the show. A happy Thanksgiving. Got to give it to Marshawn Lynch out there handing turkeys out to just random folks with their car windows open on the streets in Hawaii. We saw him handing out masks earlier on this year in Hawaii. Now he's just out there passing turkeys off. And I just love that Marshawn is out there doing things. It makes me smile every time I see Marshawn Lynch in the news doing awesome things, carrying around turkeys in his arms, going to open car windows and passing them out. And for that, Marshawn Lynch, Better at Life than Skip Bayless.
Oh, definitely, man. And hey, I guess, is he just living there now in Hawaii? Is that what's happening?
I guess so. I mean, I think Hawaii with their, they have some pretty strict protocols on coming and going from the island. So I think it's actually, you're better off if you just kind of stay and hang out there.
Well, I can tell you why exactly it's better off to just hang out there. There's no snakes on Hawaii.
No, not at all.
None. There are no snakes in Hawaii.
They got them all?
They never had them.
Oh.
Yeah.
They got some other things, though.
Well, they don't have snakes. And that's a big
that's a big
check
selling
mark
point
in the
for
pro
you.
column. Yeah, for me.
Places that don't have snakes.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have snakes up in the Gulch, though.
Neither I nor the neighbors have ever seen one. So I will probably die in a rattlesnake den tomorrow.
Well, Adam, you can die knowing that all of our members of the flock at $12 and above were properly thanked for their contributions for the month of November. Let's kick it off.
Keith Ketover, a.k.a. Flocktimus Prime, University of Cybertron, Little Flockers, roll out.
DCH from Sparks, Nevada, the University of Montana Grizzlies.
Annalisa Mickelson, a.k.a. Mrs. Doug Baldwin, New York, undergrad, University of North Carolina, Greensboro, graduate school, Brooklyn College.
Jameson Holman from Murray, Utah, representing Mississippi State University. Hail State and go Hawks.
Gary Blum from Chappaqua, New York, and the University of Pennsylvania, your 2016 Pick'em League champion.
Ron Pepper, UNLV Runnin' Rebels, San Francisco, California.
Hong Kong! Hong Kong! Hong Kong!
Ella Esparza, Woodway, Texas, Yale University, and Sam Houston State, Eat 'em Up Cats.
Lisa in Seattle.
Kevin Stengham, Keene, Texas.
Vincent Parker, Emily Carr, University of Art Design.
RN Collective.
Samuel Gelber, NoHo, California.
David Van Cleve, Camas, Washington, home of the Papermakers.
Leo Jesse, Luleå, Sweden, from Luleå Eskimos and Renkoma in front.
Paul from San Diego.
Aaron Fisher, aka Lock It and Put It in Your Pocket, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey Seahawkers, my name is Garen Taylor. I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, North Idaho. Hashtag on the Rose. Go Hawks.
And continuing on down the list, for those of you who have supported the show at $12 or more for the month of November, starting with executive producers Dustin Mock and Brian Shaw, Christina in Manassas, Ross in Eureka, Craig in Camas, Sven in Berlin, Deutschland, James in Linwood, Roe in Federal Way, Young in Anchorage, Hector in Issaquah, Becca in Manhattan Beach, California, Jared in Missoula, Montana, Tim in Austin, Kathy in Eureka, California, Joshua in Seven Oaks, England, Brandon in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Christian in Bergen, Norway, Jonathan in Ridgefield, Keegan in Colorado Springs, James in Beaux Arts, Jeremy in the Bronx, Jeffrey in Kansas City, Kari in Rochester, Brian in Berlin, Connecticut, Eric in Seattle, Tracy in Kaneohe, Hawaii, Connie in Gothenburg, Sweden, Taylor in South Cle Elum, Marvin in Riverdale, Utah, Dean in the Greater Hockdom, JC in Billericay, England, Kevin in Sammamish, John O. in Norfolk, Nebraska, Eric in Clovis, California, Crystal in Oldsmar, Florida, Chris in Spokane, John in the Greater Hockdom, John in New York, Shoko in New York, Scott in Bakersfield, California, Bryson in Eltopia, Greg in Seattle, Jeremy in Federal Way, Ben in Wrexham, Wales, Ryan in Chatham, England, Ivy in Renton, Joshua in Candor, New York, Kenneth in Hutto, Texas, Mark in Bexley Heath, England, Mario in Seattle, Seth in Tacoma, Cora in Ditters, Deutschland, Anders in Viola, Denmark, Warren in Dundee, Oregon, Chris in Austin, Jose in Chicago, Jack in Somersham, England, Marlon in the Greater Hockdom, John in Honolulu, Amy in Squim, Marcus in Potts Point, Australia, Preston in Phoenix, Richard in Killeen, Texas, Nathan in Bozeman, Montana, Joseph in Vancouver, Corey in Vancouver, Taylor in Spokane, Jesse in Sultan, Jay in Bellingham, Kyle in the Greater Hockdom, Ryan in Salt Lake City, Norma in the Greater Hockdom, Darren in Stafford, Virginia, JC in University Place, Chris in Billings, Montana, Tyler in Kalama, DJ in Menifee, California, Kevin in Great Glen, England, Jalen in Minneapolis, Terrence in Seattle, Daniel in Post Falls, Idaho, Pedro in Woodstock, Georgia, Eugene in Henderson, Nevada, Tucker in Camas, Johnny in Silverton, Oregon, Benjamin in the Greater Hockdom, and coming in via PayPal, Stephen and Leon. So a huge thank you to everyone who is supporting the show, who has supported the show at $12 and above. A happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Adam and I are absolutely thankful for everything you do to help keep this show going every single week.
With that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.